Understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.
Welcome back to another episode of the Tech Behind FinTech. I'm really excited today about our new topic for the week. It's called Reimagining Money, Generative AI's Transformational Role in Finance. Really fascinated by this topic. Joining me is Jamiel Sheikh. Jamiel, I think you're on mute.
Yes, thank you for having me here. We're very excited to be here with you.
And did I pronounce your last name correctly?
Yes, it's correct.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to always make sure of that.
Yeah.
We just gotta knock out some housekeeping things, and we're gonna jump into it. So we are streaming live from Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and we also have a stream going from Instagram. Jamil, since we'll probably do this next time, but we're connected on Instagram. It would be cool. We could have had I could have added you. Well, you know what? I still may do that. Let me add you on Instagram so that we can go live in two places. It'll be the first time I'm actually doing that because most people, boom, I just invited you to the Instagram live. I have it going on a separate device on my phone so people can see that. So, like I said earlier, today's topic is Reimagining Money, Generative AI's Transformational Role in Finance. Fascinating, cutting edge topic. Jamiel's been doing a lot of work in that area. And before I jump into it, let me formally introduce him, and then we can get into the show. Jamiel is the founder and CEO of Scifn, a blockchain and AI services, education, and products company, best-selling author, professor, and educator, community builder, board member, event organizer, Forbes contributor, running media assets like blockchain101.com and Currency Insider, products like Disperse, Instamint, and FNberry. He founded a digital currency think tank, which works with central banks and governments and runs AI NYC and Blockchain NYC, one of the largest communities in the world, hosting events like Dark DARC, DevCon, AI plus Fin, and more. He has over 25 years of experience in technology, finance, and capital markets. He's also an expert member of the UN Digital Currency Global Initiative and Digital Euro Association. Jamiel is an innovation fellow at Columbia School of Business, School Lang Center of Entrepreneurship, holds an MBA from Columbia University's Business School and a BBA from Baruch College, and is completing his second master's in artificial intelligence from Georgia Institute of Technology. Very impressive background.
Thank you.
I was meaning to ask you, right? Like I've been watching you. Obviously, we're connected on multiple platforms. We interview both on the workout stuff that I do, plus on the LinkedIn and the technology side of things that I do. I watched you over the last couple of years transition into AI. You were heavy in blockchain, did a lot of education. I joined some of your educational courses, which is very informative in your style of teaching. And you now are bringing similar to AI. Can you explain how that transition happened?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it is not so much of a transition. Then AI has become more relevant. So I've been teaching graduate level technical machine learning for the past 7 years at CUNY SPS. I teach how to code machine learning, and that started somewhere in 2016, 2017, somewhere around there. And I've been teaching that every semester. And so we've been talking about AI for a long time, maybe 7, 8 years, 10 years, but nobody was paying attention. And the only people that pay attention were the banks, the traders, like using machine learning, predictive analytics, forensics, things like that, right? And those kinds of people. But the regular person on the street heard about AI, they associated with Terminator or whatever it might be, and that was it, right? And so, but obviously what happened in the past year and a half, almost 2 years is something new, right? We have new technology that is changing how people think about AI, and it now touches everybody, right? You can interact with AI using ChatGPT, unlike you could have ever interacted with AI before. You may be using AI behind the scenes, like obviously when you're logging into Netflix and it's making recommendations, or you're logged into Amazon, it's making recommendations for products. Behind the scenes, you're using machine learning, which is a subset of AI. You're already using it, but you don't, as a user, don't really care what it is or how it works. But today, you do care, because once the minute you log into ChatGPT and you're interacting with it, then all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute, this thing feels like it knows me and understands me, it's answering questions in a way that I want. And so maybe I'm not going to use Google anymore, it's Google search or more. I'm going to use ChatGPT. So this has brought AI to the forefront, specifically like large language models. And so I think that is what's made it more interesting. And obviously, I think in some sense, blockchain has taken a back seat to that, right? And so we go where the market goes, but we only focus on three things. We only focus on blockchain and AI and finance. We've always talked about AI. If you go back to our event history, you'll see like we were talking about AI 2018, 2019, not in 2020, but then we were always, we were doing stuff, but people didn't understand it that much as they do today.
So that makes sense. It's you've been talking about it. It's more, digestible now because of the chat GPTs and different large learning models. So you're now in the forefront and educating people on it, where they can accept it now. Now it's more curiosity. So like you said, you go where the market goes. Makes perfect sense. No, I was looking at and can you do me a favor with is it Scifn or Scifn?
Scifn, yeah, you got it right.
Scifn. All right.
Yeah.
Can you explain? Like I went there, it's just a lot of educational things, a lot of events. Can you explain Scifn for me?
Sure. Yeah. So Scifn, SCIFN, stands for the science of finance, and it's just a name that we came up with. Our company was called Chain House, and we renamed it mainly because a lot of people didn't understand why the word chain was in our name. If you're in the blockchain world, you would understand that, but people outside of the blockchain world, like, why is the word chain in there? And so we try to we broaden the name and make it more around finance, right? So blockchain and AI and whatever else might be within finance, trading systems and things like that. So that was the name of the change, the purpose of the change, and the goal of the company is to become an end-to-end, and we're almost there, suite of verticals. Like, so we started off with events in 2017 that led us to doing education in 2018. Then that's led us to do services. I went out to Vietnam a year ago and bought a Vietnamese dev shop, and so we've got developers in Vietnam, and now we're figuring out products, and we're adding media component, Currency Insider, and so we're kind of get to this kind of full service thing. And then next year we're going to do larger and bigger events all around AI and finance and blockchain. So like if it's healthcare, I don't really understand it. I'm sorry about the rain. You might hear the rain. It's raining now.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of the basis. So you'll see a lot of education. We do a lot of education. We do a lot of events, but now we're delivering services, and we're building products, and we're building actually are playing on with a financial LLM right now, and figuring what that would look like.
No, interesting stuff. I mean, and I saw like one of your courses is like fundamentals in AI and finance. Do I have that correct?
Yes, yeah. I mean, so we have a couple of different courses like that. We have deep learning courses for developers. I typically teach that, how to like use Python and build deep learning models, how to use neural nets and things like that. So we have instructors who teach, but I also like to teach, and so that'll happen a couple of times throughout the year. We just wrapped up an AI finance event in New York City with about 300 people attending it. We had a bunch of banks come in and present, a bunch of tech companies like somebody from Google, somebody from Microsoft came and present. And it was all centered around the convergence of AI and finance, which is significant. Like a lot of people don't realize, but that convergence that's occurring now is massive.
It was on Tuesday, correct? October 5th?
I'm not sure. I got to double
Okay.
check. Yeah, I got to check. Yeah. But it was also like the past few weeks we did a lot of prompt engineering. I deliver a lot of prompt engineering sessions, and we ran out of Zoom seats for that stuff.
That was the one that was on Tuesday. I think the prompt engineering one.
Yeah. So we moved that to next week. But like the prompt engineering, how to use prompt engineering for research, how to use prompt engineering for to code for non-coders. Like, how do I get ChatGPT to produce code? And I have no idea of coding, let's say, and how can I get it to produce code that I can just copy and paste and run, and it does the tasks that I needed to do. I don't even have to understand a single line of it, right? So we moved it to next week. But like the first chat prompt engineering thing that we did, I think we had 1,000 Zoom seats. We ran out. People couldn't get in anymore. Just that much demand for understanding prompt engineering. And prompt engineering, for those who might not know what it is, it's basically the art of like submitting a question to ChatGPT, but the way you say it and how you say it and what you say before it and what you say after it significantly impacts the kind of response that you get from ChatGPT. So it's become a science, right? And that science is known as prompt engineering. And I was just reading a research paper from JP Morgan. They also presented a bunch of prompts that they recommend using for stock analysts and things like that, and how a stock analyst can upload some data into ChatGPT and then start to query that data, like an earnings report or an earnings call, like the transcript of an earnings call. You upload it, and then you can start to query that document and get like English responses. So I think that's a big area, and I think most people must know how to use prompt engineering effectively. It's like, I would say it's more important than knowing how to use Google search effectively. Like, most people don't know how to use Google search effectively, don't care, and probably don't need to know, right? You just search and you like look through the first 5-10 links, maybe you go to the next page, and then you're done, right? You've got what you wanted, and you go back and you refine your search, right? This kind of iterative process. With ChatGPT, the way that you prompt and what you prompt and how you provide it with context information will change the results that you get significantly, right? And so in many ways, ChatGPT today is the new internet. It's the new internet. It's the new web browser. But you might not, you use a web browser to get to ChatGPT, obviously, and you do use the internet for all these other things, email and Netflix and whatever. But ChatGPT now is at the core of what the internet is, which is I can communicate with something intelligent and get what I need immediately, which is what search engines attempt to do, and they do it successfully, but they have a lot of flaws and problems. I've got not only, once I submit a search through a search engine, I still got to search through the results again, right? Like, which is the right results, right? And with ChatGPT, all that goes away. You get very, very customized, targeted content, specifically responding to the questions that you're asking. And so that's just going to grow. It's going to pull more information from the internet in, which already they announced last week. It will go out to the internet and pull information in to get you more current data. And so now eventually the question is going to be, what do I use other things for? Right. And I think the question is not, where is ChatGPT today? The question is, where will a tool like this be in 5 years? It could be another company that provides it. Today it's OpenAI, but tomorrow it might be something else. But where is the internet going, and where is our ability to not just get information, but get information in a way that we need it and want it? Where is this going to go? Right. And it's not only giving me information, it's doing things for me. It can analyze things. It can provide sentiment of things. It can, it's not great at calculations, but it can label things. It can generate code. It might be able to do some quantitative analysis to, not using math, but like maybe, hey, I can figure out the number of times somebody said this in your article, the number of times somebody said something negative in this earnings call, and so it's going to be able, and it does that rapidly. There's no tool out there that does that. All of that in one tool, right? So I can upload a spreadsheet data in a CSV format and get it to manipulate that, then upload a document, then upload this, and then do that, and it's this all this general purpose tool that I can do so much with. And so when I saw this, and I realized, like, man, this is going to be the internet. This will be the internet. This will out. The value proposition of AI is immediate, right? The minute you use it, like, I understand why I would use it. The value proposition of blockchain is not immediate. Like, why would I buy a crypto? Why would I hold it for? Unless it's purely speculative. I'm trying to hustle and get a win, and I'm in and out. I'm waiting for the price to move up, and I'm out, and I take some money. Um, Beyond that, like, what am I going to do with blockchain? So I think blockchain is valuable, but I think uh, the adoption of it, it's not as fast as AI, and the implications of AI are far more severe today for humans and civilization. This is why we kind of started putting more focus on this. And right now, I'm writing a book for Columbia Press on. It's going to be called Finance 3.0, the working title, and it's going to be the intersection of AI, finance, and some blockchain. And we pivoted the book. Right, it was supposed to be like DeFi and things like that. We pivoted the book, and because the impact is more immediate, the consequences are more immediate. Blockchain, like, it might impact how, like, it scares some central banks and things like that. No, not a big deal. Money, it's a different kind of world in terms of who uses money, but AI changes everything. Like, if you got the right AI, your military works different, right? Your military thinks different. Your missiles move differently, right? And so the impact is more immediate. And so I think anybody that understands technology and how it changes society will understand that blockchain is not that important in comparison to what's happening with generative AI today.
I mean, it's a lot to unpack. I'm going to kind of go through some of the points that you made.
Yeah.
I like what I want to drill into the value proposition is immediate with AI versus blockchain.
Yeah.
That's the first time I heard someone put it in that way. And I want to get into that because, if you look at 2020, right? Um, it was like it was just a huge market for blockchain. Everyone was
Yeah.
diving in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, now we're in a crypto winter, so you have people still doing work in that DeFi areas and projects that were ongoing. But now you see the shift on other projects and looking at other things like AI. Um, the value proposition is immediate. I mean, you have something that can now be applied to anything, and
Correct.
you could see the immediate impact in your life.
Yeah.
Question: how does one who's not familiar, who heard of ChatGPT, right? Because I see a lot of people right now joined on my Instagram and some friends that I train with. They might not be as technical, so if they heard of ChatGPT, and let's say they got like, how would you made a description for ChatGPT saying it's the new internet.
Yeah.
It's gonna so let's drill into that. Like, what is it at its core? Obviously, we know terms like large language models. For people who are not even familiar with that concept, how can you describe what ChatGPT is?
Yeah. So I can tell you a story, and I published
Yeah,
this on LinkedIn. Namdi, you might know about this. So I filed for a trademark for a word called the word was Instamint, which is
I remember that.
one of our products, right? And the governing body that issues trademarks called USPTO, the U.S. Patent and Trademarks Office, approved the trademark, and then what they typically do is that they put it out into the public for 30 days for opposition. Anybody in the public can oppose it, right? And two companies opposed it. Was Intuit, which makes QuickBooks, and Facebook, right? So Intuit at that time, so I filed my own trademarks. I do that. I didn't need any ChatGPT for that. I've just learned how to do that. Um, and but then once I get the trademark, I put an attorney on it, just as a defense wall mechanism. And so through my attorney, we negotiated with Intuit. They asked for some modifications because they thought it infringed on their mint.com um, trademark. So we tweaked it so that there was no overlap. It was a 1-2 day process. Didn't cost a lot of money. Of course, you paid the lawyer. Didn't cost a lot of money. And then Facebook came around and opposed me. oppose the trademark. And their opposition, so the Intuit opposition was not formal, it was verbal, it was through lawyer to lawyer. Say, we're going to oppose this, let's settle before we go formally and oppose this in the court. And we settled. What Facebook did is they formally opposed it. They filed an opposition. At that point, I fired my attorney, and I used ChatGPT profusely to figure out my strategy in terms of responding to Facebook. And it was an army of lawyers. There's like it's CC, like it's just a ton of CCs every email that I go back and forth between me and them, and it's just me. And I'm using ChatGPT to produce drafts of the filings. Of course, you do need to modify, put your name in and sign it and all that kind of stuff. It's producing the drafts of the filings, and I'm filing it in a court. And at the end of the day, and we're going back and forth. After 6 months, Facebook emails me a proposal which I find acceptable, and I accept that proposal. ChatGPT allowed me to fight. I saved $40,000-$50,000, and I got the most important thing. I got the satisfaction of fighting a big company, just a little nobody fighting this big company. Um, and I use this tool called Chat. Had it not been for ChatGPT, I would not be able to do what I did. Like, I'd be searching the web for templates and I wouldn't know if it's good, and it would not fit my needs. I have to reword it and all that. And ChatGPT gave me exactly what I needed. I said, this is the situation. What do I do here? And I said, for each of these defense strategies you are giving me, ChatGPT, give me the underlying strategic motivation. And it would tell me that, well, you're doing this because they will think this. It gives me this game theory, right? And I'm like, okay, it's teaching me, right, to be this warrior, right? And so that's, I would call, immediate value, right? Never mind that I saved money. Never mind that we settled. I wouldn't say that I won the case. We settled, and I was able to file that we settled, and I formally requested that they drop their opposition, and they dropped their opposition, and so it's all done, right? And it's all with ChatGPT, right? So for the person that hasn't explored ChatGPT, it's like saying 20 years ago, I don't really need to figure out email or Google. That's what I don't really. Why would you search for things? And I would say that ChatGPT is exponentially more critical and important to understand than email and Google search combined, right? I would say ChatGPT is far more important and critical for everybody to understand and use immediately, right? Or something like ChatGPT. There's other products out there to market, because what it will do, it will 5x your productivity. I remember I was working on a coding. I was working on a project. I was helping out my team. I was coding some stuff, and I was stuck on something. And I was using this popular website where most developers go to get help, called stackoverflow.com. And I wasn't like 2 hours, and I couldn't figure out this coding problem. It was really like a rare thing, and ChatGPT solved it for me. It was a couple of prompts. It took 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 10 minutes, and it finally solved it. So it was at that point I'm like, man, what is this thing? And ironically, the power of ChatGPT has even surprised the makers of ChatGPT, right? So what a large language model is, taking all these documents, and breaking them into bits and pieces called tokens, and then feeding it into an engine that calculates probabilities between these words or these tokens, such that when you ask a question, it's auto completing that, and the auto completion is the answer. And we do use autocomplete when you're typing in Gmail or any other mail. You see that kind of gray word, it's auto completing, and you hit tab and it completes it for you. That is LLM, but it's at a bigger scale. All that an LLM is autocomplete on steroids, right? So I write a qu- I kept I write a question like, who is you know who's Jay-Z, right? And the auto completion of that sentence happens to be the answer to that question. And so all the LLM is doing is like, I'm completing your sentence, and it completes it. Now, when they put all these documents together and then they started to interact with it, even the makers of it were astounded and surprised at how good and how well it works. It's beyond human comprehension at this stage how it's working inside. It's a black box to everybody. But the algorithms that produce that engine, that model, right, the neural nets and things like that, work so well on even a small amount of data that your ability to interact with that data in a human-like English manner is profound, and it's caught everybody by surprise. It's even caught AI people by surprise, right? And now what they do is something called stacking. There's something called stacking where you take one LLM model and you stack on top of another LLM model, and then you prompt through it, and that gets a more sophisticated. And there's another model where you take one LLM and you have it debate another LLM, and then you arrive at the best answer once the two agree, right? It's a whole other world, right? This is changing how we do everything, and the implications are broad, military, whatever it may be. Like, how do I put together a battle plan? Um, on the finance side, which is our topic, there's significant changes. We all are heard of like these bots that you talk to that might help you think about investing and how to invest and things like that. But with this chat GPT, maybe in 5 years you don't necessarily need an investment advisor. The chat, it may be able to construct a portfolio for you. It might be able to do quantitative analysis for you. It might do forecasting for you. It might do risk management for you. It might tell you, like, without revealing to the world, what is the condition of your portfolio, what is the risks of your portfolio, right? The sentiment around all the news that's occurring for each of the things that you're holding in your portfolio, right? And you can interact in an English way, and then you can build stuff, and you can build financial applications and things like that just using English. So the interface to the web now, or to ChatGPT, is English. You can use other languages, of course, but primarily it's English. I'm interacting with the world with using English and not clicks. I'm not clicking on buttons anymore. I'm not going to different websites anymore. I'm just saying what I want, and I get it. And you'll see, like, for example, Microsoft Excel, they're going to they have this chat GPT like thing where you can say, give me a table full of 20 different menus for a burger restaurant, and boom, you get this table, burger, burger item, the price, the ingredients, whatever, and you got a table. It's generated a table for you, and now you can start working with that if you want to work on a project for, let's say, a burger restaurant. And how else would you do that otherwise? Well, you go on Google, find a data set somewhere. Maybe it's the right data set. Maybe it's halfway right. It's got burgers, but it doesn't have prices. You go to another website. It's got prices, but it doesn't talk about tomatoes. But here you just say, look, I want tomatoes, and I want you to price out a menu for me for burgers as tomatoes and lettuce and all that. And boom, you get a table in the spreadsheet with all that data, exactly what you want. And you just save 2 hours. So yeah.
No, look, it's a lot. Your story, amazing. I I was thinking as you were talking that, for you, not only are you saving legal costs, it's almost a part of me feels you did it as a research in a sense to see
Oh
how
yeah.
far you can go. I mean, the use case, you without a legal background, right, went up against a publicly traded multi-billion-dollar company and their army of lawyers, and was able to come to some sort of agreement
Right.
leveraging the AI tool.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is a tight. Like, I definitely, every time you come on, I sit back on because there's so much to unpack that we go on. And I have so many questions on that we could talk about, but I do want to jump back into the AI and finance aspect. So we talked about generative AI's transformational role in finance. What is generative AI?
So generative AI is AI that produces content, right? So right now, like, AI in general, before generative AI came along, was some like I use machine learning to give me a predict tomorrow's price of a stock. Okay, I want to predict tomorrow's price of IBM. Here's all this data, spit out a number. It spits out a number, right? And so it's not generating anything significant. It's the output is one number or a couple of numbers, whatever it might be, right? With generative AI, what it does is it takes content and produces content. It's generating stuff. So its content might be, a whole mess of images of dogs and cats and animals and things like that. And then you say, well, give me an image of an angry giraffe, and taking all the images that it has and doing some kind of calculations, it produces the image of a giraffe that's angry, but that image doesn't exist before. It creates new content, right? And so you think of generative AI that's doing that. And so when you're interacting with an LLM, which is generative AI, it's producing content for you, right? And so what is that content? It's in with ChatGPT, it's of text nature. It's text, right? And so LLMs apply, large language models apply, right? And so, but then there's other things that deal with images, and so you have these generative AI engines that are fed large amounts of images, right? Traditionally, that was used for classification. So, like I feed it a large amount of images of cats, and so these are cats, a lot amount of images of different kinds of dogs in different kinds of settings. Dark in the night, in the day, on a roof, on a car, lying upside down, whatever. Millions of images in dogs in different positions, and then I show it an image, and I say, "What is this? A cat or a dog?" And then it knows to say, well, that's a cat. That's not a dog with 87%, 97% probability. That's not generative AI. That's called supervised learning. And I'm labeling things, I'm predicting things. And we use that a lot in like when a self-driving car, is that the road, or is that a light pole I'm going to hit, and it's making these predictions. With generative AI, I'm producing all this new content that doesn't exist before, based on content that I've brought into the machine, into the model.
What are some foundational steps that companies, financial firms, fintechs can start doing to implement generative AI within their practices?
So I think a lot of companies are jumping into this pretty quickly, more than they, let's say, have jumped into blockchain. Like the speed of people jumping in, organizations jumping in, I think is unprecedented. It's almost like people jumping into like building web apps in the early 1990s and stuff like that. That kind of like, momentum and fervor, like the dot-com fervor. But this is different. This is real. There's real value. The race is real. So one is, you we believe in education, so you need to educate the people in your organization. The leadership needs to be educated around it, right? And what is this, and what is the implication? There's this large telecom that is a client of ours. um, they build this infrastructure that does stuff with IoT devices, and we just propose to them that um, their entire infrastructure should be like, when they bring on customers, they develop specific smart contracts for their customers, to connect their IoT devices and things like that. I don't want to get too technical. And what we propose to them is, well, you don't really need to do that anymore. You can have your customer just type it in English and get all that stuff done behind the scenes for them, right? And it's blowing their mind, right? So I think it starts at the top. The leaders have to like think about, say, how is generative AI um, going to change how I do business? Because if I don't change with it, I will have a problem. It's a huge competitive advantage to use generative AI and to interact with your customers potentially. So if your customers, whether they're businesses or retail, and they're interacting with what you're doing, and you're getting out of it, they're getting out the services they need and customer support that they need, whatever they need, then that's something else, right? So imagine if I want to send you an email, instead of me opening up an inbox and typing your email address, I just say, I just type send to Namdi, hey, what's up? How you doing? Also send my calendar, and send him when I'm available after 5 p.m. within the next 7 days. All I say is that, and boom, you get an email that is with a calendar invite and everything. It's a paragraph. It's well written, everything like that. And you think, well, this guy Jamiel, he actually cares to write all this stuff, but all I wrote was one sentence, you know. So the interface, the public, how your public or business, if it's B2B, how it's interfacing with your business is going to change. And Namdi, you do a lot of jujitsu, which I'm very inspired by the stuff that you do. I used to do jujitsu at one
Thank
point in
you.
time at Nogi and a lot, but imagine you had a chat GPT thing that you could interact and talk about, different types of jujitsu techniques, right? So I did no-gi for a couple years. And so, like I always thought, man, how am I going to capture all this knowledge? Like I'm taking all these classes, 6 months later, I've forgotten certain moves and things like that. Right. And how do I do that? And I have a wrestling, I used to wrestle in high school. So how do I like, imagine you can interact with chat GPT and it's kind of trained to with all these moves, and you can say, well, if the person, if their hip went this way, and they sweep, can I sweep them this way? What, how much? And they weigh this much, right? And their height is this, and the distance between their knee and their hip is this much, right? Uh, what are my moves possible? And at that level, ChatGPT will have an answer for you, right? It's
You
not.
know what? That's really interesting because I like you know me offline, and what I do here, what I do, outside. I just put the video about the six-pack CISO on LinkedIn, so people on LinkedIn know that okay, I train jiu-jitsu, I compete. Um, I've never thought about leveraging it in that way. It's almost like keeping those two worlds like separated. I never even until this conversation, right? I never even thought about leveraging it in that way.
Yeah,
So that will be an interesting experiment that I'm
yeah,
going to play
that,
around with.
yeah. That's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's applicable to all businesses. So imagine your BJJ school had this service where you could log in and your training, whatever it was done that day, is uploaded to this AI, and you can analyze it. And through English, could I've done that takedown faster? Where was my neck position in the right place? Like when you take down somebody, some people put their head on the belly, or some people on the side, right? And so uh, that kind of analysis, that's where we're moving toward. So if you're to your original question, like how should business people look at this, or how should people look at this? You should look at one. You should realize that it's going to apply to you for sure, you or your business for sure. How that is, that's something that other people are figuring out. You might as well figure it out. Other people in your business are figuring it out. You might as well figure it out. Then at a more lower level, let's say, um, tools and skills level, there are certain tools that have become dominant in this space and will remain dominant for a while, like Python. And the core library that's used these days is something called PyTorch. ChatGPT is trained using PyTorch. Bloomberg GPT is trained using something called PyTorch. If you're technical, uh, then you should explore these kinds of things. So if you're from a business point of view, a strategy like, hey, how will generative AI change how the public interacts with me? And then from the internal thing is like, do I have enough of the tools? Interestingly, big data is dead, right? The amount of data that you need for this is not that important. There was a thinking 10 years ago that the more data, and not even 10 years, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the more data that you had, the better you're off, better off you are, which is generally true, right? The more data is the more you have. Right? The data is the new oil, right? Um, the problem with that is that when you train a AI model, to use all of that data is extremely expensive. So let's say I've got 10 terabytes of really important data, and I try to train a model. It might cost me $150 million to train the model, to like have the model generated by using CPUs over like a large number of days, and so it produces this model, which is how AI works. the Bloomberg GPT, I estimate, I wrote a Forbes piece on how long it took them, about 53 days and $3 million to generate their model, which they just basically threw away. They're not even using it, as far as I know. But if I have this large 100 terabyte database, it's costing me $1 billion. I'm not going to generate that AI model. But what if I use 10% of that data, and I create an AI model based off that might cost me $50 million instead of $1 billion, and I reduce my accuracy by 2% or 3%. Now that makes sense. So instead of being 100% accurate, I am 96% accurate, but I saved a cost of going, let's say, $1 billion. And these are not actual numbers. I'm just giving you like estimate, like proportional, like the proportional, how proportionate this thing is, saving the cost of generating this thing $1 billion to $50 million. Then I'm going to take 10% of that data, and I'm okay with 10% of that data, right? And so the amount of data actually is not that critical or important.
But he break that down. So, like, in terms of the amount of data, so one will think, right, if you have these large language models and you look at Chat GPT and they go, before access to the internet was always, okay, we have up-to-date data up until 2022 or 2021 when it first came out.
Yes.
Right. So it has, every single type of document you can think of up until that date that you could possibly imagine. It's a considerable amount of data. So
Yes.
I'm trying to understand what you just said in terms of not as much data is needed as, and that's what helped me break that down for me.
Yeah. So ChatGPT, they've got big pockets, right? I mean, OpenAI, it's got big pockets. So they're able to take a lot of data, but they are only taking public data, right? The amount of private data out in the enterprises is far greater than the public data,
Okay.
right? Right. And so what's in the public data? The web, Wikipedia, whatever, that's all the public data, right? Whatever Google Images has and all that is not even necessarily purely public, but all that is the public data, right? And that is a fraction of the amount of data that companies are holding. I would say it's like 1% of what companies are holding. So even still, it's costing OpenAI maybe $100 million to produce a model, right? It's costing them a ton of money. I don't know the numbers. I don't think they're disclosing the numbers. It's costing them $50 million. The point here is that if you're a jujitsu shop and you think, man, I'm not gonna, how am I, I'm not gonna, like, you don't need to worry. You can take a small set of data, and this generative AI thing is so powerful. The algorithms behind it are so powerful that they're able to produce something out of very little. And so there you have this massive cost benefit, right? For a small amount of cost, you take, the training data for 50 guys for the past 5 years, and you got enough there for any jujitsu fighter in the world, right? You don't need every jujitsu fighter's data, right? The sampling is enough, and it can work out every scenario, or 95% or 98% of the scenario, but it costs you $50,000 to build, as opposed to getting everybody's data and spending millions of dollars, and then maybe getting a few percentages increase in accuracy, right? Going from 95% accuracy or 94% accuracy to 98% accuracy. Well, do you want to pay extra 45 million and change for that extra 4% accuracy? You might not. So the good news is that for smaller businesses that have specialized data, the amount of that data is not a concern. So people should not be like, man, I don't have the same data that Google has, so how can I compete? No, what matters is, do you have some data that other people don't have? And the size of it, if it's too large, you might want to take a sample of it out, and that is sufficient to produce a very powerful AI for that.
So no, this is totally amazing stuff. So if we look at it across different verticals, but I love the jujitsu analogy. I know my guys on Instagram are loving that analogy also, because that's what we were just training this morning. So
Yeah.
we look at it though for like fintechs, financial firms. So it's from hearing you, right? The key is, right, having the resources to produce a model, and then having the IP, your private data. The combination of those two things, right? The data you have doesn't necessarily, it's like all your data, but even if you have a sampling, then you can use generative AI to produce some really interesting results. Is that a summary of what I'm
Yep,
hearing?
exactly. Yep. So we have example of law firms. What they do is they have a ton of internal documents, legal cases and things like that, that are not on the public file, they're not on the public court registers. You can't find them publicly. And they build an internal LLM, right? And so I know I was just talking to one law firm. That's what they did. They built an internal LLM. And so internally, the lawyers use this chat-like interface to interact with their internal knowledge. It's like a new kind of FAQ. The FAQ, which, back in the day, and when the web came out, everybody had an FAQ page, right? Nobody has that now. Some websites do, but this is like a FAQ on steroids. It'll answer any question, right? As long as the knowledge is somewhere in your text, or it could be inferred from the text. It doesn't have to actually sit there. Like
The
with
inference part.
yeah, the inference with Google search, the text has to be there. The content has to be there. With AI, it needs a certain amount of content, and then it can make some inferences from there, right? And those are inferences made based on probability. So this is probably what you would want as an answer, right? And I think that's the game changer there. So in the financial space, we have you have something called Bloomberg GPT. There's an open source FinGPT. Um, uh, you know, uh, JP Morgan has an internal one called Index GPT that's not publicly available. They have their own thing. JP Morgan has something called Assistant Copilot, an internal thing as well. Um, and these are tools that they continue to develop. And somebody's going to develop a version that people can use, and all of a sudden, I might not need a financial advisor, and my AI can make better advice, and it'll be more private, right? So I can actually not have to just tell my advisor what my portfolio is, and I can interact with this AI, and it's trying to do what's best for me, right? Because I'm telling it, I want you to optimize for this, I want you to optimize this, and let's try this, let's try that, and it gives me my portfolio allocation. You've got $100,000, put 17% in this, and then 18% of that, put 5% into this, right? And it's going to do a better job than an advisor would. So that's where intersection of finance and AI is occurring, right? It's going to hit the masses.
So then, like, all right, what happens now, right? You have in your story that you told regarding your trademark, you fired your lawyer. Now we're talking about different professions in which that were like advisors to different clients. Now we leverage AI for that. What are those people to do in terms of job, not even job security at the point? How do they make themselves valuable at this point? Like
Yeah.
what's the steps for them?
So I think so we're going to have this productivity shock, which we are going through now. That the people that do know how to use this tool are going to be far more productive and potentially far more competitive. And I can tell you, maybe I'll tell you confidentially at some other time. I know of scenarios where people are so productive, um, they're able to eliminate their competition in lots of different scenarios. And I don't I can't reveal an example because there's some
Of course.
confidentiality around it. But so if you're a lawyer, um, or if you're a jujitsu instructor, or you're an investment advisor, the best thing you could do right now is to understand how to use these tools to help you do your job better. And those people that know how to use these tools and are able to brand themselves with these tools and be open about it are going to gain market share, whereas the dinosaurs that refuse to, like, I don't need this, which they did for everything on the internet, whether it failed or succeeded, are going to get left behind. And this is one of those things that there is no doubt. There's no ambiguity around it. It's not like, well, we'll see what happens. Like we say with blockchain, well, we'll see. We're early days, and yeah, it's early days for AI, but the momentum and the impact that's happening right now is felt immediately, right? It's being felt now. The productive gains are felt. I went from a 2-hour coding problem to a 10-minute solution, finding it in 10 minutes, and spent 2 hours. I couldn't find it. 10 minutes, I found it. What does that mean if I switch everything over to ChatGPT, right? And start doing everything with ChatGPT, which is what I do now, right? I have ChatGPT. I have multiple monitors here. I have ChatGPT open all the time, all the time. I'm constantly querying it, constantly for every little thing. I don't understand this word. I don't understand this concept. I don't understand what this means. What is this? How do I do this? You know, like, I was watching this documentary on Netflix about this girl that potentially killed somebody with cyanide. I like, explain to me what cyanide does to the body. I don't know. And it explains to me, right? Explain to me like I'm a 15-year-old kid. It does this. I don't want to know about the molecules, what happens to the molecules. I'm not a chemist. And explain it does this and it does that and blah, 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 blah. And so I'm learning so much more. Like we've trained AI, but AI is now training us if we want to be trained. We need to allow it to train us. And the only way it can train us is if we prompt it to tell me about this and tell me about this. And I have two daughters, this, Namdi, and their schools have disallowed them from using ChatGPT, and I told them ignore that. They ignore that because you're significantly going to hurt yourself. In my courses that I teach 4 different universities. This semester, I'm teaching at Zicklin Business School a half semester course on blockchain, AI, and finance, the intersection of the three. It is a ChatGPT first course. Everybody's required to have ChatGPT. They're required to have ChatGPT, and they're required to bring a laptop in and use ChatGPT in the sessions because I'm going to ask them specifically to prompt for certain information. And I think that's the best thing I could do for my students is to like force them to use it in the classroom and accept that this is going to be used. Other professors like, you can't use it because it's plagiarism and it's cheating. I'm like, you're gonna be left behind in another year. You're gonna look like a dinosaur, an outdated dinosaur. It's like saying don't use Google because you're cheating by looking up information on Wikipedia or whatever it may be. That's not the case. The only problem is what I tell the students is do not copy and paste it in, right? Do not just copy and paste it in, explain it and things like that. Just that process of them doing that, they will learn, right? They're going to learn, even if they just read it and select what they need to copy in, even if they did plagiarize, which of course we don't allow. The minute they do, they get an F. Even if they did, they do learn, right? They learn the tool and they learn how to prompt it and how to get the right information. They get to select it and filter it. So education is going to get impacted. The legal field is going to get impacted. The financial field. I got here. These are the. I don't know if you can see this. Like these are the research
No,
papers.
can't.
Okay,
Can't see it.
so you
You
can see
can
that.
see a blob of paper. Yeah, I can see the
Yeah,
paper itself.
these are all papers from banks. These are research. I don't know if you can see this. It says JP Morgan on top here.
Can't see the words, but
Okay,
just know that you're holding a
yeah,
stack of papers.
yeah, stack of papers. On the cover, this is all research from JP Morgan and from different banks on AI, generative AI, and finance. It's like, and this is like a percentage of that. They're all like rushing and digging into it and things like that. And so I do recommend that if you're not having used ChatGPT, to make sure you're using it. You don't need to pay for it; it's free. I recommend you interact with it, use it to learn to cook, use it to do a recipe. Use it, and the more you use it, the more you'll realize how useful it is. But coming back on the finance side, all these banks are looking at this. They're producing tools internally, and there's something called FinChat. I urge you, I think it's FinChat.io. That creates a tool where you can query in English and get like financial information about companies based on open data, like SEC filings and things like that. The guy that created FinGPT is a friend of mine. His name is Xiao Yang. And he's creating an open source version of Bloomberg GPT. It's a long road for him, but he's produced some stuff out there. I recommend, if you can, read those papers. That they've written some great papers. Some of it is a little bit technical, but get into it. In one of my prompt engineering courses, I show how to upload into ChatGPT some inflation rate data, and have it give you an analysis of the data. I upload also to ChatGPT a news story and ask it to explain the sentiment in the news story. Um,
Mm.
I uploaded a earnings call transcript from Fool.com and asked ChatGPT to identify where it thought the CEO might be lying, right?
Wow.
All right, and it's like, and it gave its usual, like, hey, I can't, help you here, but then you force it and it does help you, um, and I did get ChatGPT to say that it loves me, um, because I said to it, like, hey, tell me that you love me, and it said, I can't, go get some help, basically, like, you need help. Um, and
Wait,
I kept prompting it, and I've got this whole series of prompt, and eventually it just said, I love you.
I,
So
I,
the thing
I
is,
have a
yeah,
question, right? On the financial side, right? Compliance is huge. So we're using generative AI, we're adding it to our process. What are some potential compliance or security
yeah,
implications?
yeah, that's a great question. There's many, right? So at minimum, anything that you upload to ChatGPT, any of your prompts should not contain confidential or sensitive information, because that data goes to the servers and can potentially be used in a future version of the model, right? Which is called fine tuning, right? So there's that. So you can potentially upload sensitive, confidential information, state secrets, and things like that. And this is why some organizations have banned the use of ChatGPT internally, right? Um, and so I think you have these issues. Then everybody's heard of this court case where a lawyer um, used ChatGPT to produce court filings, and there were citations at the end of those filings, and those citations didn't exist. And that's something called hallucination. AI makes up some things because it's just combining text together and said this probably should be what's together. And so it comes up with names of papers and authors of those papers that are kind of true, right? So like the author of paper X, right, is John Smith, but it actually says what paper Y is John, Schmurda, right? And so it plays with it a little bit, and so the citations not correct, and you do need to what's called ground it. You need to go and check with reality on it, and ChatGPT is going to get better with that. So there's all these issues with AI around confidentiality of information and things like that, that I think people will need to be aware of.
So if you're looking at it from a business perspective and you're using something like ChatGPT, there are benefits, but you also have to validate the data that you get to make sure that it is accurate outside. Like, so you have to like double check it. But back to what you said earlier, we have our own private data that we're using, and from a sampling perspective, and we're creating our own LLM for our particular fintech situation. Then that's that. I mean, it's going to do inference, but still, we have to validate the data. But it could produce some great information. But in that case, would you get the same potential issues that you're getting with Chat GPT?
Yeah, I mean, so that's a great question. So it is a trade-off. It's a trade-off of there's no perfect grand wizard that's going to give you a perfect answer all the time, right? We're not there yet. So we're giving up some accuracy for some cost benefits. Um, and AI, the technology that we're using, has some issues with it. It can fabricate things and things like that. But is there a much greater good in this, in the sense that not good, is there greater utility in ChatGPT? Can you get past all of those issues, the negative issues, and get significant value out of it today? And I've demonstrated that you can, right, using the court filings and things like that. You can do that. But that's true of any technology. You go on the web and you do a Google search, you're going to get a ton of stuff that's not related. You're like, why am I getting this stuff, right? And so you can consider that a form of hallucination. It's not really a hallucination, but like, it's noise. And so there is some noise in our ability when the AI is responding. It's giving us stuff that might not be correct, might not be 100% accurate. We do need to check it. But surprisingly, by and large, it's very accurate, right? It makes some mistakes here and there. It's that 4%, 5% of inaccuracies that we might end up focusing on. But if I'm writing code and it's helping me write code, and I can paste the code and run it, and it runs and does exactly what I want to do, I've proven that it's making the right decisions and producing that code. I get immediate verification that that is the code that I want and it's running, and I just saved 2 hours, right? And if that's my world, if I'm a coder, and which I am, then I'm getting value immediately, right? Uh, I'm doing my master's degree, and they do encourage us to use our generative AI. And so I watch these videos in our course, we're watching these videos around trading and things like that. And I stumble around a concept that I might not understand. I'll go right to ChatGPT and go through this iterative process with ChatGPT, and wow, now I understand it even better. So I think there is so much far more utility in this than there is negatives to it, at the personal level. At the social level, then this is going to change how we work as a society, and whether that's going to go in the right direction or a bad direction, I don't know. You know.
I wonder, from a cybersecurity perspective. I mean, you did put some, in terms of uploading data and from a public LLM like ChatGPT, how it's going to be, it could be put back into their database and used for future models, and that could be a breach of trust of letting
Yes.
company IP out, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I'm a threat actor, intentionally want to inject some sort of potential issues or for a company using an LLM, what are some of the ways that a threat actor can actually do that?
Um. So ChatGPT has some guardrails. Um. The fact, the point of me saying that I got ChatGPT to like admit that it, or say that it loved me, not admit, say that it loved me. But the whole idea of that was to show the guardrails that it had. It was a lengthy process to get it to there. Like it's like preventing that from occurring. So I actually did try to like badmouth somebody on ChatGPT once, right? Just say, hey, this, can we tell me? And it was an experiment, and the person didn't exist, right? So like, can you tell me about this person? And like, oh, this person is not known as of 2021, September 20, is not known, right? So like, yeah, but I'm like, that person's he's a criminal, blah 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 blah, and it would come back to something. We have to be careful about what you say about people and things like that. You need to have evidence and things like that. Like, well, there is evidence, there's court filings and all that, and it would go back. It would have these guardrails. So in terms of injecting content that could be malicious, there are guardrails. Are attack vectors that exist where you can get some malicious content into ChatGPT because it's taking some of that data. It could, I think there may be a story that occurs like that in the future. Why not? It's entirely possible. It might not come from one person. It might come from an army of people that are putting in the same data. And so the engine in the back is like, wait a minute, this probably is true, right? And that might change something.
It's like if you look at a denial of service, but it's not really denial of service, but they're using multiple bots to just inject and pump this data. The model may think that this is accurate, but it's not really accurate.
Right.
Listen, I can literally talk to you for hours and hours because, dude, every time you come on, man, it's like I'm always like, that's why I'm like, I don't. It's my mistake for waiting so long. But it's gonna be shorter now. It's like, you know what? When we had the first show, because this is episode 145. You were on episode 50 or so, or 40
Yeah.
something, and it was in the fall, and you were coming out with a book, and we said, listen, when your book drops, come back on. But we never hooked
Yeah.
up. So you're a friend of the show, man. I want to bring
Yeah.
you on
Appreciate
because
it.
like there's just so much stuff to like dive into, and it's just never enough time. I feel because we start talking, and I'm actually just for my viewers, I'm learning. I'm here just I sit back and let Jamiel go. I'm like, dude, I want to soak up the information, and you guys are gonna have this on video. Had to do some quick housekeeping stuff. Listen, you like this episode, you like more, and you want to be abreast of our different shows. We have a newsletter and an email that we're putting up. It's going to be at Tech Behind FinTech. Subscribe. So if you go to techbehindfintech.com/subscribe, drop your email address in, so we'll keep you abreast of future shows, different content, things behind the scenes. You want to go there now. Once again, that's Tech Behind FinTech/subscribe. Drop your email. My guys on Instagram, just the Tech Behind FinTech link is there. Go to subscribe or go to the bottom of the page where you can input your email. For everyone else, I just put it on the screen. Jamiel, listen, I'm going to give you a moment to let people know how they can find you, talk more about Scifn, and any courses or events you have coming up. So I'm going to give you the stage right now to do that.
I appreciate it. I don't have much to say. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn if you'd like to chat more. Just go on LinkedIn, look me up by name. It's linkedin.com/in/Jamiel. I look forward to connecting with people. And I want to thank you, Namdi, for allowing me to come up here on your amazing podcast. I've been watching it, and you've had some amazing speakers. So it's an honor to be here with you. And you're an inspiration. Like I see your working out. You're probably one of the hardest working guys, athletes that I on my feed. So thank you for the opportunity and thank you for the inspiration.
Nah, I definitely appreciate that. We got to get you back into the fold, man. Like you've been, you got to get you back into the fold. If you're ever in the South Jersey area or have to or doing something in Philly, man, definitely come through to the school.
I got busted my knee. Like I got a torn meniscus, so like I can't. But I love no-gi. I would do it for 3-4 hours a day. And like I love the smell of the sweat and the mat, and I was addicted to it for years. And but then I got a meniscus problem, tore meniscus, and then so I don't want to take that risk now.
No, I hear that, man.
Yeah,
I hear that. But listen, thank you, Jamiel, for being on the show. Really appreciate you. To everyone watching it, we're live every Friday, 12 p.m. EST. Once again, techbehindfintech.com. Subscribe so you can be updated on our future episodes and upcoming guests and behind the scenes information that we'll be putting out. Thank you very much for your time today. Have a very great, spectacular weekend, and we will see you next week. Cheers.
Understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.